to another episode of Out of the Woodwork podcast, brought to you by Axminster Tools with me, Sean Evelegh. This week I'll be speaking to woodturning master Colwin Way. Colwin discovered a passion for woodturning after joining a local production turner on his schoolwork experience, and hasn't looked back. Woodturning has taken him the world over, demonstrating and tutoring to enthusiastic crowds around the world. He was able to combine his love for turning with his passion for teaching and sharing his skills when joining Axminster Tools as a tutor more than 25 years ago. And today he can still be found sharing his passion on YouTube, reaching thousands of people week in and week out on Woodworking Wisdom Live, the company's own YouTube broadcast. Thank you for joining me, Colwin.
That's quite all right. Thank you for having me.
Well, I have dabbled in a bit of woodturning, so I'm really looking forward to talking to you. So, for people that don't know you, can you take us right back to the beginning and why you decided to go down the woodturning route?
I started turning at the age of 13. So schools at that point were doing a work experience scheme where they send you off into the big wide world and do a little bit of adult stuff, so work.
Yeah.
And I chose this woodturning workshop because it was about 100 yards from my front door. So a bit of a lazy choice, really. But it was a choice that shaped the rest of my life. So I went there for 3 weeks. Work experience, decided that I loved wood turning. It was a production wood turning workshop. So we were doing things like just cutting bowl blanks out, turning bowls, spindles for staircases, all those sorts of things, but by hand, as opposed to like a CNC copy machine. Because I liked it so much, my parents sort of thought I could something in his spare time. So with the help of the guy that I'd done the work experience with, bought a lathe, an old second-hand lathe, ML8, a Myford ML8, and my parents put me up in the shed in the backyard. It was a 4x6 shed, and I took that up as a hobby until I left school. I went from school straight into building, or on building sites with my uncle. He had the building company, but literally within the first year, went in as an apprentice for Jeff Manley, who was the owner of the woodturning company, and that's where I'd done 5 years as an apprentice woodturner. So it was a 5-year course, really, but I loved it, absolutely loved it. But then once I left my apprenticeship, I went straight into self-employment as a woodturner, and it was really tough.
Yeah.
Very difficult to make a living, especially just starting out, new career, selling woodwork. It was craft shows, a few shops and things like that. So at that time, no writing, no demonstrating or anything, a little bit of teaching. So I then started another job. I became, with no experience, a farm manager in the mornings and woodturning in the afternoons. I rented the workshop on the farm and then started learning how to manage a farm.
Did you like the farm life?
I did like the farm life. I'll tell you why, because a lot of people that are listening, if they're into woodturning, understand how addictive that is.
Yeah.
But then also couple that up with working on a farm, driving tractors. I took my dog with me for the day, looking after animals. Everything was good, and you're in the open air. The farm was poultry and wood, so it was firewood, and we used to cut and cultivate timber for firewood, for gate posts, strainer posts, all those sorts of things. So it was wonderful because I'd not only been able to turn, but I was learning and being put through lots of different courses in woodland management. So,
and you did tree felling?
Tree felling, yeah, lots of, so whether it's crosscut or felling, timber extraction with heavy horses, using nursery cropping, so using Christmas trees to nursery crop hardwoods. So everything timber. And of course, I could then take the best bits to do what I was doing. Yeah, absolutely. So
to take you back to your education, you did an apprenticeship. Because woodturning is so specialist, I guess, isn't an apprenticeship, if you wanted to be a woodturner, the only way to go? Because is there woodturning courses like a university or? Yeah,
well, not for woodturning as such. So there are, but run by the Association of Woodturners Great Britain and the RPT, so Registered Professional Turners. So you can go on an adult training course for that to then become a qualified woodturner. Okay. There are things like the institutions like the Registered Professional Turners where you have to show a competence and you have to have done a few years of woodturning before you can apply and all those sorts of things. So there's that, but there's no recognised sort of certificate in mainstream education, which is interesting at the moment. And I found, unlike furniture making, it's becoming cooler. But you'll know what I mean by this. Furniture making is widely accepted by younger professionals and younger craftsmen, where woodturning tends to be, or has in the past tended to be, an older demographic.
Yeah.
Because of things like YouTube and streaming and all that sort of thing, woodturning is sort of, the age is lowering a bit more now.
Yeah.
So maybe in the near future, education may look at that and think, oh, okay, we may need to do something.
It's funny that it's seen as sort of a separate thing, because I see it all as woodworking.
Yeah.
But, it used to be, a furniture maker, if they weren't making a chair, they would outsource the turned components to a wood turner. Yeah. Do you like that way of working, or do you think woodworkers should learn how to wood turn as well, because it's not used as much?
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from, and I would like to think, certainly in joinery workshops for furniture making, definitely, your turn components are really, really important. I'm not sure whether it works the other way around though. So if someone's into wood turning, the time then to learn
all the other things,
exactly. Because it is time, isn't it? We have to put so much time in learning what we do. You'll appreciate that with what you do, with furniture making. It's the dedication and the hours that you have to put in to be good at it.
Yeah.
And then to go on and teach or to demonstrate or write about the subject is huge. I think turning's probably easier to use if you're a furniture maker. Get on a lathe, do what you need to do, rather than if you're a wood turner, you tend to find that all consumes. So to be able to learn what you do is a big, a lot of hours involved in that.
Well, the difference is if you're specialising in wood turning, the difference, I might jump on the lathe to turn a drawer knob, but because you're specialising in that, it would be nights and day. It would be a lot better than the average woodworker banging out something,
Yeah. But I think for you to be able to do that, you can do that. Now, most people can pick up a turning chisel and do, a very good example of what they want, a drawer knob or something, something like that. But for me to cut a hand-cut dovetail, that'd take me days. You'll knock one out in a half.
You teach me some wood turning and I'll show you how to do a dovetail.
But that's it. I think it takes a little bit longer. Yeah. That's the only reason.
So this question, I think I already know the answer because you said you're addicted to it. But for me, with woodworking, I'm using lots of different machinery and there's not as many repetitive tasks. Sometimes I do that. But I can, from an outsider looking at just a wood turner, I would think that you're always on the lathe. How do you keep yourself enthusiastic and not... I know you wouldn't be bored, but do you know what I'm trying to say? If you're always on one tool, what can you do to push yourself and challenge yourself?
I get it. Well, you think about the different types of timber that are out there, the vast array of projects, places that we go to, and people that you meet as well. There's not, in wood turning, a bowl's a bowl. We always joke about the world's got enough bowls. However, there's so many other projects and things that you can do on the lathe with other materials. When I started as an apprentice, we weren't just using timber. We were using all sorts of natural products. So we were using amber and jade and jet, even bone, antler, all those other products. And it was really quite interesting. Now, of course, we've got things like resin and all that sort of stuff. Now, not always the most popular of things to use resin, but a lot of people use it. It's great for demonstrating. It's great for streaming and all those things.
And it flies everywhere.
Exactly there. So there's all those things. But for me, when I say about places and people, one of my big turning points in my turning career recently, and I would say that was about 9 years ago, was a trip to Germany and to the Ore Mountains down near the Czech border. Yeah. They are famous, or world-renowned for their nutcrackers and German smokers, candle arches and things like that. That really turned my inspiration around, where before I classed myself as a teacher turner. So everybody has their thing, and mine tended to be teaching, because that was all I'd sort of done. And my projects were so vast, I couldn't pick one thing. As soon as I came back from Germany, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to recreate these toys, these soldier nutcrackers, the smokers.
In the German style.
In the German style. Because of that, their tools as well. The UK at that point didn't have any of the tools that were traditionally used. So things like skew chisels, splay skew chisels, hand forged skew chisels, that sort of thing. So just traditional standard UK tools. So skew chisels, but not in that style.
Okay.
So I approached Crown to come up with a similar thing, and they did. And they're selling really, really well. And they have been for the past, I think, about 5 years we started them, to the point now where they're being exported back to Germany. So it's a real big thing. But what I like about it is the fact that we're using the traditional tools to recreate those projects that have been made in Germany for hundreds of years, literally hundreds of years, but putting quite a different spin on it. Now, when I go onto Google and I put in, I'll type in German smokers or German nutcrackers, some of the pieces I've made are coming up, which is a really big thing for me. I love it. Yeah. And we're getting pictures continuously coming through of people that have seen the demonstrations and now doing their own. So it's really good. And also those skew chisels that Crown have made are now selling throughout the world. So I hope
your name's on the handle.
They are, absolutely. They're Colwin Way signature skews. They're on the blades. Lots of people come through saying that they're using them from all over the world. So it's a real big thing. That was my turning point.
Okay.
Real biggie.
Yeah. So what about the German style caught your eye? Was it because I saw some of the miniature men and the Vikings you turned, and I see wood turning as, you can there's lots of colouring you can do. Yeah. Is that your own style you've added on, or is that Germans like to colour
They're very different. Originally, no. There was no colour. It was using the natural colours in the timber and mixing different timbers together to create the decoration. Now they're very, very colourful, especially nutcrackers. Very colourful, to the point where there's gemstones put on them and other embellishments as well. So I like colour, but translucent colour. So you can still see the timber.
The grain. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that as well.
And it just looks really cool. So the Vikings that you're talking about, the tones were very earthy. So it was a tribe of Vikings that we made up going along that theme of earthy colours. And you can see the grain running through, because again, you start talking about colour in timber to people and you see shock on their faces sometimes.
It's like, they don't want it to look like plastic.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, German nutcrackers, smokers, candle arches, carousels, they've all got wonderful stories behind them. And that's, as a demonstrator now, because we were talking about production turning and where I started, it's very much now gone to presenting. So telling a story, and to tell a story, to have a story behind you backing that up. So like these lovely folk tales that you get from each of them, and all being different, it helps you. It really does.
I can imagine.
People it's a warm fuzzy feeling that people get when you start telling them about some of those folk stories,
So you've done demonstrations all around the world.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about do you have in your head a demonstration that went really well, your favourite demonstration, or is there one where something went wrong and maybe something flew off the lathe? I dread to think that.
Fortunately, and touch wood, not yet. Nothing's flown off. We always have little mini accidents, which creates a little bit of a snigger. Yeah, catches. Yeah. One of them, the demonstrations I do, I purposely create catches. So skew chisel. Skew chisel is a little bit notorious in the craft, and so I explain why a catch occurs. Let's show you. And everybody
I bet the
jumps.
Audience really starts peering over.
Exactly. Do you recognise the noise, all that sort of thing, and lots of sniggers. And then why did that happen? So I do that fairly regularly. Like I say, touch wood, nothing bad has gone wrong yet.
Did you? When the first time you did that, were you wearing like a chainsaw suit?
Yeah,
like a face shield?
No. It's all very controlled, and So even though it sounds dramatic, when you're doing it, and the big bang and all those sorts of things. Absolutely controlled. Know where everything's going to go to.
Okay, that's good.
Obviously, fully protected when you're doing it as well. But no, those are the sorts of things. I'm one of those people that has to prepare.
Oh, I'm the same.
So to eliminate that, so hopefully without, if it wasn't prepared, then things can go wrong. And I do a lot of talking on my presentations as well, on the demonstrations. So nothing that I can
nothing
think
negative.
of
That's a good thing.
Negative,
That's a good thing.
When we say nothing negative, sometimes I'll do a demonstration and I'll finish it and I wasn't really there on that one. I didn't really feel that. And I don't know what that is.
I think it's probably because you're probably a perfectionist. I can imagine the audience really learned something and enjoyed it. Because if you do it all the time, if one thing is slightly off, you're only going to think about that. But actually, the whole thing, I'm sure it's not as bad as you think.
If you get no question's a bad question, but if you get a question that you feel, I didn't really answer that properly, or I didn't explain myself properly there, then you come away feeling a little bit,
Run back up to that person and said, no, I was wrong.
I love big audiences.
Yeah.
So I've done the American Association of Woodturners in Raleigh, North Carolina, back in 2019, and that was the biggest audience that I demonstrated for, and it was a real buzz. A little bit of nerves just before I was introduced, but once we got going, that was fantastic.
I can imagine. Yeah.
I love that. What on the flip side, ones that I'm not overly keen on, but I do a lot of them, are Zoom demos. So usually for clubs, done a few for seminars. So a Zoom demo or a live virtual demo where there's no one in front of me apart from the person operating.
Well, when someone coughs, do they suddenly show up on the screen?
Exactly that. Well, it's even worse because I don't see them at all. So the computers turn around, whoever's operating sees that. All I see is like a picture in front of me, and all the camera angles. Okay. And so I can literally go for 3 hours talking, demonstrating, and not hear a peep from anyone, even though they've got the ability to ask questions. I find online, on a virtual seminar, people don't want to ask questions.
They're just enjoying it so much.
I think they're nervous about asking, about being heard when they're.
It should be easier over the computer though, because
you're not seeing.
You're typing it.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Well, that's the difference. If they're talking, no, but if they're typing, so like using the chat function, that's not a problem. They'll ask loads of questions.
People say whatever they want on the chat box.
Yeah, absolutely, and find that there's lots of conversations going on outside of your demonstration as well, which is great. It's almost like a community feel where everyone's talking to each other.
Well, in recent times I imagine the remote demonstrations have got a lot more popular, and you can reach more people than you would in a physical demonstration. Massively.
So a physical demonstrations, you've got that local area, haven't you? But on virtual demonstrations, it's worldwide, it's global. And I think in that situation of a lockdown sort of situation where you've got lots of people not being able to see people really, but when you go online, there's all their friends. If it's a wood turning club or a woodworking club, they can see each other, they can chat and all those sort of things. My favourite part of that type of demonstration is before I go on, and it's listening to everybody catching up with each other.
Yes, I've seen that in the chat boxes. It's, Alan, you're here. Yeah, looking forward to this.
When you can hear them as well, especially if it's an overseas club. And those lovely, the different accents, the different regions, the US, for instance, the different areas of the US with all the different accents and things like that. I love that. And they're, everyone's going about their daily life doing normal, daily, mundane things. But the way they're talking about it is, if it's in another country, it does seem very different.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Even though it might be over the same subject, it's just nice listening to all those different dialects.
Yeah. And even, I guess, you don't even need to speak English because it's a language that you can. It's very visual. Yeah. So, and you've got a camera zoomed on right at the turn piece, so they can replicate it.
I have turned to a non-English speaking country, demonstrated live and online, and used interpreters. And I'm demonstrating and presenting with an interpreter next to you is a very different scenario altogether because you have to pause, you have to wait, and I'm not used to doing that. So you can see the interpreter thinking, "Can you stop talking just for 5 minutes so I can interpret?" So that's a very different thing. Trying to tell jokes for an interpreter doesn't work.
I can imagine a joke really falling flat.
It just doesn't work. You're waiting for that laugh and you never get it. Just sort of quizzical looks.
Okay, so all the pieces, you do lots of demonstrations. The pieces you make, you sell on your website. But
Yes.
you also sell in summer shops and have done exhibitions as well.
Yeah.
I know you're in the Wizardry of Wood exhibition
Yeah.
in the Carpenters Hall in London. Can you tell us about that and what the turning company that you're part of is all about?
So Wizardry and Wood first of all, I was so amazed to be invited, because it's an invited
Or the elite
exhibition. Well, yeah, that's what they say.
No, well,
that's
you
what they
definitely
say.
should be invited.
And it's amazing to be invited and included in such a thing, especially where it was in Carpenters Hall, which is a stunning hall.
Yeah.
And so I was I'm going to get into trouble now, I can't remember things. One of 16, I think, wood turners invited. And basically you exhibit what you do. So a big part of my exhibit were the German smokers, and I had some big nutcrackers there, as well as things like, bowls and resin stuff, all those sorts of things. And it's on for 5 days. And some wonderful competitions being held as well there. So there's exhibitions, competitions, and us, the 16, showing what we do. It's right in the banking district of London, central London. So we stay there in the hotel, and we're walking through, central London tourist spots all the time, which is really, really
make
nice.
a trip of it when you go
Absolutely,
down.
yeah. We went out in the evenings and went to the theatre, all sorts of things like that.
It's once every 4 years.
There's going to be 3 years, we think, this time, because there was a delay because of the pandemic. So, 3 years' time.
Okay.
Or 2 years' time now. Yeah.
Okay, well, that brings me on to, you made a trip of it. Outside of woodturning, what do you do for fun? When you were in London, what did you enjoy doing?
I took my wife, so we spent it as a chance to go and do some of these nice things. Went out for meals and went to the theatre and just saw the sights. I don't get up to London very often at all. It will be increasing, hopefully, and I'm taking the family up there this June. So to look at some of the sites, to go to the theatre, to do the dungeons, everything that everybody goes to London to.
Yeah, I haven't actually done the dungeons, but I really do want to.
Yeah, no, well, that's where we're staying very close to them, so we thought we'd do that sort of thing. And it's going to be nothing turning related when we're up there. It's all about having fun. Yeah, my two grown-up sons are really looking forward to it. So just show them where we went.
So right after that trip, the word on the street is you're going to America to do some tour. Yeah,
so there's a huge amount. It's a very busy year. We haven't been able to travel for quite a while, so now everything's come at once. I've got a very good friend in woodturner called Nick Agar. He's a very well-known woodturner in the States. He's a Brit, so he grew up in Dartmouth and has since moved to Brooklyn, Savannah, so this in Georgia, to work with a company called Chromacraft and develop his range, Nick Agar's series of embellishing pastes, waxes, dyes, all those sorts of things. So that's what he does. And we're going to tour together. So we're starting off, I'm going to fly to him at the end of June. We're starting off at the AAW, so the American Association of Woodturners seminar. And I'll be working for Axminster Tools there, selling chucks and centres. And Nick's going to be working on the Chromacraft stand next door, doing the same thing. We're demonstrating, telling everybody why these are so good. And that's a seminar. It's a big, big seminar, biggest in the US.
Wow.
We're in the trades down there. And then we're moving on to some really cool places. So we're going then to Gatlinburg, to Aramont School of Arts and Crafts.
Okay.
And we'll be doing a joint 2-week course there, teaching for 2 weeks solid, and then traveling around Chicago, Tormek, Chicago, and then up through doing a tour of wood turning focused demonstrators, stores, all those sorts of things.
Do you know what you're going to be teaching?
We're sort of working it out. I'll be a lot of skew work, a lot of German influence stuff. He's more the Viking side of it, so Viking sunset bowls, that sort of thing. Again, iconic sort of shapes in the wood turning world. We're going to get as far over as Vegas, where we go and see another Brit abroad, Jimmy Clues.
Okay.
And we stay with him for a little bit before going back down to Tallahassee, near Florida. to work with another company there, King Arthur Tools, and then back up to Brooklet, Georgia. So lots of little stops.
That sounds
wonderful
amazing.
journey. And then I come back literally for 3 weeks in August, and then off out to Mark Adams' furniture school. So I'll be doing a woodturning course there for Mark Adams. That's an exciting one.
Well, and how long is that?
That one's, so I've got 2 courses over the course of a week. So a weekend course and then the 5 days.
Well, I think anyone wanting to do woodturning, getting a week course and very specialist, I think by the end of it, they'll be very comfortable. Are they beginner courses or advanced courses?
They're sort of based in the middle. I would expect people there to have an understanding of woodturning.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be looking at things like using the skew chisel and then pushing them on to particular projects. So I want a bit of the basic knowledge there. Already. I will also teach the Nick Hagar Studios at the beginning, actually, before we go to the AEW. There's loads.
With the lockdown, you're dying to actually get out, and so I think all the time you missed, you're making up for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
In this tour.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and that's without all the other countries this year. But yeah, that's what I'm most excited about.
Out of the Woodwork is brought to you by Axminster Tools. Nobody is more passionate or knowledgeable about woodworking than us. A market leader in mail order tools and the machinery industry, we offer a friendly and personal service to thousands of woodworkers all around the world. Whether you're a trade professional, business owner, education leader, amateur DIYer, or a hobby enthusiast, we share your passion. Discover more about Axminster Tools. Visit www.axminstertools.com. So with demonstration, it's such a visual thing, woodturning, and you can dictate it very easily. I know you've done some articles for magazine writing. Can you tell us about the articles you've written?
Mark Baker was the editor of Woodturning magazine, and he'd been a massive influence. He started off working for Robert Sorby and then became editor of Woodturning magazine about 10 years previous to that meeting. He had asked quite a few times, would you consider doing articles? And I put it off until I was pushed. And I thought, no, I need to do something else. So I started writing. And the first probably 3 or 4 articles, and we were doing one a month back in those days, they were hard. I don't work well with deadlines. And so what used to happen, I was wait until 2 or 3 days before the deadline and then do it.
Everyone does that.
Just stress out about the photos and how much I had to write. And it was only like 2,000 to 2,500 words, which at the time seemed like masses. A little bit dyslexic as well. So I was sort of just spilling everything out on paper and having him then edit it. And he was quite frank. He'd come back and say, what's this? What have you written about? What is it? It doesn't relate to... And so he was quite harsh to start with, but in a good way. Never nasty. Constructive. Yeah. Always helpful.
Well, I'm dyslexic as well, so I think it helped dyslexic people. That's why they're so creative, and it's a different way of thinking when you're creating something.
So, and I also get my son and my wife to read it back for me. But Mark was brilliant. He would read through it, change it, and then send it back to me and say, right, look at that. Is that okay? And that's fine. So I found a way of writing that was led by pictures, and that's how I do it now. So with my son, we make little how-tos, and we've done our first book. We're in the middle of the next one, and they're how-to, so they're workshop guides. Basically.
So you go through like projects.
Yeah, and so where people say that I write like a talk, it's perfect for a how-to because you're given an instruction.
Yes.
So the first one is it's project-based. First is on making wooden fruit and jam chucking, so a little bit technical stuff. The next one is the German smokers, and this is a much bigger book. This one, so this has taken a long time. And since we started doing that, for me, the YouTube has crept in as well. So we're trying to support the book by doing downloadable copies, by doing a YouTube video of that journey of that project.
Are they unlisted videos? Because if someone watched the video, then they might not buy the book. Yeah,
absolutely. So they are all made public. And what I found, the minute we've put a video up. So I've got lots of downloaded plans as well. The minute I put a video up how to make it, so many people download the workshop plan as well. Because the video's in their head, but when they're actually making something, they're not playing the video back.
Something to go back to.
Exactly. So that, right now, what's the next step? What's the next step? And they'll have line drawings and things like that in them. So that's been really quite good. You know, lots of social media, so Instagram and Facebook and things like that, right, where there's a new download ready, and a mini demo, a little teaser demo, that sort of stuff. That's worked so well.
Yeah, so after doing the articles, you started doing the articles and the books, that's grown your own business and allowed you to sell more.
Well, I'll tell you what that's done. Writing the articles, because Woodturning magazine is an international magazine, more people overseas have seen what I do. And so I've had more requests to do demonstrations, both virtual and face-to-face, in the States than ever before. And that's led to this tour, really. That and our regular Woodworking Wisdom YouTube streams for Axminster Tools. That has really bumped my name up in the US especially. So the magazine's responsible for that. And the magazine was responsible for me getting the AAW seminar gig, so the presenting at that one in Raleigh. So I've got a lot to thank Mark for. And my freelance stuff because of that. Again, you know, the trip to America I'm doing with Nick as Nick Agar and Colwin Way. It's our little or big tour sort of thing. So, you know, that's really helped. Writing, I never thought I could call myself a writer in any way. Only it's been helped by people like Mark. To start with, when I started writing, like I said, I hated it. I absolutely love it now.
Yeah,
I really love it. I just find that I said to you, didn't I, about 2,000 words being a lot. I struggle to stop at 2,000 words now. Just
condensing it down is
absolutely. Editing photographs, starting off for an article in the magazine, you're looking at 24 to 25 photos. So you start off with 100. What can you get rid of? And I can't get rid of that one because that's showing this sort of thing, you know. So that's the difficult part of it. Is editing down and getting to what's going to fit in a few pages. Yeah, that's why I like my plans.
So for people wanting to get their work out there, like you've done in shops and exhibitions, how for someone getting started, or just someone wanting to get their work out there, what do you recommend for people to do?
It's really difficult. You know, I said right at the beginning that when I started as a woodturner away from my apprenticeship, I struggled. It was a hard career path, and working the farm sort of subsidised what I was doing without realising actually that's training me on, you know, using the change which is a real benefit to my wood turning, all those sorts of things. But demonstrating if we're just talking wood turners and wood turning, I think teaching is huge, demonstrating is huge. I mean, if you can stand up and demonstrate in front of people, if you have the skill to demonstrate whilst talking and thinking about questions and all those sorts of things, that was definitely the way to go. But writing is been a big part of what I do. If you can write, if you can explain what you're doing, you have someone clever enough to take photos whilst you're doing it, or you set your own cameras up, then that's good. What's been a big thing financially for me is the woodworking plans, the wood turning plans, and digital downloads. To support that, that led to more presence on social media and then developing the YouTube channel and things like that.
Well, I was going to say a YouTube channel. I think obviously social media is where it's at the moment, and it has been for a while. For people wanting to get their work out there, I've always said start a YouTube channel. So many opportunities come from it, and I can imagine if you're a wood turner, people will see that and want you to come to their club. And wood turning seems like, from an outsider, much a tighter group of people. There's more clubs, because I think with demonstrations you can probably complete a project in one class, you know, an hour session. I don't know any furniture making clubs. You know, a furniture maker evening class, you're not going to make a chair in an evening.
No.
So it seems like quite a nice... does everyone know each other? Or
Yeah, I mean, clubs, they tend to be... so, for instance, they would be in London. I think there's probably a good dozen to 15 clubs around the London belt sort of thing. But yeah, they are very much... they always meet at the same place. They get set up by a person that has a group of good followers around. They could have been going on for 10, 20, 30 years in some cases. And there's some clubs bigger than others, but the big thing with a woodturning club, several big things. It's the community feel. Like you say, you walk in the door, you know you're going to know a lot of people there. It's the nurturing aspect as well. So if you're a beginner woodturner, you just want to go along to the woodturning club. You'll have people there that are very skilled in what they do. So you're real sort of difference in abilities. So you have the guys that have been turning for ages will bring on the beginners and then nurture each other. So you have little mini competitions in beginner, intermediate, advanced turning competitions. And the first time you put something into a competition, especially as a beginner, it's a very nerve-wracking moment because you're being
judged,
critiqued, and it's but if you then start to win a few or get a little bit of notice from people, then that really pushes you on as a turner. Yeah. And it's an inspiration thing as well. You get different people demonstrate at the club once every month to 6 weeks, sometimes even more frequent than that. And you get inspired by a certain thing. I said about being inspired by the German turners. It only takes the one turner that you're gonna sort of connect with, and that'll inspire you. And that could be your turning point. They're really important parts of the turning community, wood turning clubs.
Yeah, with the beginners, I think it's so important, passing knowledge on and getting the youth doing it. It's a shame that a lot of schools at the moment are taking design technology out of the curriculum. What do you think can be done to make wood turning more recognised and show the youth that this is a thing you can do it? Because it's not, I don't want it to die out, and I'm not saying it is, but I definitely think with the way we're going, we need to encourage people to keep being creative.
I think we're in probably the best place we've been in a long time. We're in that transition that technology's done, really. Yeah. Exhibitions like Maker Central, where they bring that demographic down, it's a younger audience because of social media, because of YouTube. That's opened up wood turning to a much younger audience. It's made it cool again. There was, for a long time, DIY was never cool, but because of social media, does DIY now, everyone does it. And you look at social media, it's all mainly led by under 40s. Under 30s, even under 20s, in some cases, and YouTube especially. And I think that for us has really made people want to do it, whether that's woodworking or wood turning or wood carving. It's made it more interesting. I get the fact, you're a youngster in your teens or in your 20s, or in some cases even in your 30s. You don't want to sit in a room with a lot of pensioners, the over 50s, and watch someone all night. You'd rather just put YouTube on and look at a demonstration there, or look at 5 minutes of it on social media. It's not the same. When you have to sit and watch somebody for an hour and a half to 3 hours, I can't, I can absolutely understand why the younger generation doesn't want to do that. There are all these other platforms now. Follow someone interesting that you like on Instagram, and if you're not interested, go to the next video. That's where we are at this stage. So I don't think we need to worry about it at all. I think there's so many young turners and woodworkers, furniture makers coming through. We're fine. And
I think the tools are becoming more and more accessible now and affordable. If you wanted to give it a go after seeing a video online, you can buy just a small lathe, I assume they used to always be huge, in factories, and now you're getting benchtop things, and you don't even need a workshop. You can do it in your kitchen.
Exactly.
If your parents don't mind sawdust going everywhere.
To your own needs, can't you? You sort of buy stuff for your own needs. But the influence, the global influences as well. Again, we're not stuck just in our local area in terms of our inspiration. We can look throughout the world. If you like someone from the US, or going back to the magazine, Richard Finley was guest editor a few months ago, and he done an interview with an Iranian lady turner who'd done some incredible stuff, but it was a very different look. It was to her, going back to her culture, turning culture in Iran, and what that was all about. And I'd never seen anything like it before. It was, again, very earthy tones, a lot of oaks, darkened oaks, just made it look really, really old. And I was quite inspired by what she was doing. Yeah. And I would never have seen anything like that before. If we were just talking about a local club and no internet, no magazine.
Was she trying to, you say that they're looking old, was it sort of like Roman or like replica?
Not quite Roman, but it was based on their turning culture, which I wouldn't have seen, outside, if I was just working with clubs, say back in the 70s in the UK, where I didn't have the internet or anything like that, so I couldn't have seen what other people were doing outside of my local area. Okay, magazines were around, but even then it was very insular. It wasn't, we didn't look away,
So seeing other people's work from all around the world inspires you to give it a go yourself.
Absolutely. What I said about the German stuff, it's that every turning culture has got their own sort of look. And where I was saying about, the world has enough bowls. Everybody, when they start turning, want to turn a bowl. For some reason, they want to turn a bowl.
Do you have any recommendations for beginner projects?
Yeah, stick with spindle turning. Absolutely. Yeah. Not so much for your learning, but for your safety. Spindle turning, you'll develop your tool skills much quicker, and you'll be much safer whilst doing it. Once you've developed some of those skills, then you can go to what I call faceplate work, which is a little bit more hazardous. You need to think about speeds a lot more, tool presentation, all those sorts of things.
Well, with spindle turning, there's still the things you can make are endless. You can do chess sets. Yeah. I remember very early on I turned a baseball bat, which I still have. It's probably a lot shorter than a regulated baseball, more like a rounders bat probably. But that was a lot of fun. Yeah. And I think the first time someone turns something and they hold a bit of sandpaper on the spindle and then feels how smooth you can get it. Yeah. You're like,
It is like, I always liken it to throwing a pot on a potter's wheel. It's instant. You can make that shape straight away, and it's very addictive for that reason. It's one thing I've never had a go at is throwing pots and potting. But it's one of those things I think it looks so easy.
Well, I've tried it. It was a little bit hard.
Yeah.
You bring it up and then it does just fall.
Yeah, it looks so easy, but really difficult.
It's a bit like wood turning. Someone watching you would think he's making it look very easy, but there's so much to it. It's the same with lots of different crafts. Have you tried any multimedia in your work? Have you tried to add any other materials in? Or
so I've done resin. I've done a huge amount of resin. I've demonstrated resin to lots of clubs. But I suppose the other materials would be, the natural materials, like I was saying about the jet, the jade, the ambers, the horn and the bone, all those sorts of things. Now they're very different. And each of them work very, very differently. Amber, for instance, melts when you get it too hot. It just breaks down. Jet, you can get lots of different types of jet. Some with fractures in, some nice and solid. All different things. And the same with bone. One of my early memories from my apprenticeship was the day we boil the bones. We had an old tin bath, and it was usually ox shin bone, and we had to boil it down to get rid of all the muck.
And what do you make with the bone?
So that was hat pins. Jewellery, all those sorts of things. Lace bobbins was another one.
So with all the turning you've done, and you mentioned your signature chisels, is there any other tool that you have wanted sort of to invent, or a type of finish you thought I could try? Or
if I think of something, it's out there instantly. I'm completely
in your demonstration. You said, shouldn't have said that.
No, exactly. I'm an open book. I'm rubbish at keeping things quiet, even when it comes to some events that I shouldn't be talking about. I just blab. So no, I have ideas about things in terms of tools. And about projects, and I tend to write project ideas down because so many of the things they just go out of my head so quickly. And continuously, you've probably found exactly the same thing. Continuously found that you've been inspired to make something. I want to write that down because I will forget about it. But there's too much in your head to make.
Yes.
Yeah? And there is literally too much in my head. I can't make it all. I just got to start somewhere.
And you need the free time if it's a personal project.
Yeah.
So I've really enjoyed the chat, Colwin. Before we go, someone who's wanting to get into wood turning or curious by it, do you have any words of wisdom or any advice for anyone getting started?
Absolutely. Just have a go. I think too many people worry about not being able to do something, that they don't actually pick up the chisel and do it. Practice it all the time. If you can practice just for 10 minutes of an evening before you actually try and make something, just to warm the body up, just to use the tools, that will really help. And just do it. Just have a go.
Watch your demonstrations.
Watch demonstrations. Watch as many, and don't get grounded on one person. Watch as many people as possible, and take the best from each of them.
Okay. Well, thank you for chatting to me. I really enjoyed it. I'm really excited to get back on the lathe now.
Thanks, Sean. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Join us again next time for another episode of Out of the Woodwork. For more episodes, to listen and subscribe, search for Out of the Woodwork on all major podcast sites, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For more woodworking project guides, demos, tools, reviews, and more, visit www.axminstertools.com.